Okay, so let's be honest. Sometimes dealing with politics feels like it feels like a chore.
Yeah.
But hey, you're here, so obviously you're kind of curious about maybe making participating in democracy a bit easier, like
Right.
less of a headache, more effective.
Yeah.
So today we're diving into this research article. We want to answer a big question. Can good UX design actually save democracy?
Well, it's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And this research, it really explores that potential,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, we usually think of UX in relation to apps or websites,
Right, exactly.
but when you start applying those same principles to how we interact with political systems,
Hmm.
well, that's where things get really interesting.
Totally. The article, it starts off by highlighting this pretty major problem. Tons of people, they want to participate in democracy,
Right.
right? They want to be involved, but the systems themselves, the systems are like the biggest barrier. It's like they were designed by someone who hates trees and citizens.
That's a great analogy. And it really gets to the heart of why UX is so crucial here, right?
Yeah. Because at its core, it's all about making things user-friendly,
Right.
intuitive, accessible, whether that's a shopping app or, say, registering to vote.
Exactly. And there's this point the article makes that honestly kind of surprised me. Even things like complying with accessibility standards.
Yeah.
That's a key part of UX design when we're thinking about politics.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just about making things look pretty or, sound fancy.
Not at all. It's about making sure that everyone can participate,
Right.
regardless of their abilities. Think about it. Imagine a voting platform that's totally compatible with screen readers.
Yeah.
So suddenly people with visual impairments, they're not excluded from having their say.
Right. They're not shut out.
Exactly.
Okay, so the article digs into like some specific UX principles that can make a real difference, right?
Right.
The first one they highlight is simplicity
Okay.
and clarity.
Yeah. And honestly, sometimes dealing with those government forms, I don't know about you, but they feel like they were designed to make me want to give up, like just give up in frustration.
Oh, for sure. That's a perfect example of where good UX can step in and,
Yeah.
and really make a difference. Think about, a well-designed app.
Right.
It guides you through each step, right?
Yeah.
It uses clear language and it avoids, overwhelming you with just tons and tons of information.
Right. Yeah.
Like if we can apply that same approach to these political processes,
Yeah.
that could be a real game changer.
It could be huge. I mean, but isn't there a risk though of like oversimplifying things? Politics is complex.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
But complexity, that doesn't have to mean confusion. You know,
Right.
good UX, it's about presenting, complex information in a way that's digestible,
Yeah.
understandable without having to sacrifice the nuance.
Yeah.
It's about meeting people where they are and then guiding them through the process in a way that feels empowering, not overwhelming.
So it's not about dumbing things down.
Yeah.
It's about making like these complex ideas accessible.
Exactly. And, the article goes beyond just the obvious, too, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about making things, look pretty or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about using simple language that's accessible even to people with, like, lower digital literacy.
Right.
Yeah.
Which brings us to accessibility.
Okay.
Another principle that the article really focuses on. And this goes way beyond, just screen readers, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's about ensuring that everyone can fully participate, regardless of their technical skills or their background.
Yeah.
Is there a danger, though? Like, do we end up excluding people if we focus too heavily on digital tools for civic engagement?
That's a crucial point, and the research definitely acknowledges that. The digital divide,
Right.
it's a real concern. Any approach to improving civic engagement, it needs to consider those who lack, reliable internet access
Right.
or digital literacy skills.
For sure.
And it's why, even in the digital realm, things like clear language
Yeah.
and intuitive design, they're so important.
Okay, so accessibility, it's more than just the technical aspects. It's about making sure everyone feels empowered to participate. The article also talks about building trust. And honestly, this is something I think about a lot when it comes to sharing, personal information online. I get a little nervous about data privacy.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
No, not at all. And the research really emphasizes how UX design can actually be like a key player in promoting transparency and building that trust.
Yeah.
Imagine, a voting platform
Yeah.
with a clear and concise data privacy policy.
Right.
That's upfront about how your information is being used and protected.
So it's about being upfront and transparent.
Exactly.
And those, those SSL certificates, those matter, right? Little lock icons in the browser bar, they're not just some random design element.
No, you're absolutely right. They visually communicate, that the site is actually using encryption to protect your data. That's part of UX too. Designing those systems that signal security and trustworthiness.
Another principle the article digs into is interaction and feedback. And this one really hit home for me. I remember one time I signed this online petition and it was met with nothing. Total silence. It was super deflating. Like, did my voice even matter? Did it even go through?
Yeah, that feeling of, did my action even register?
Yeah.
That's exactly what good UX design is trying to combat,
Yeah.
Think about it, like the psychology of motivation, right, in politics. If someone feels like their actions are meaningless, they're way less likely to stay engaged.
Right.
The research talks about the importance of feedback mechanisms. Even something as simple as, a message that says your voice has been heard.
Yeah.
That can make a huge difference in terms of encouraging, continued participation.
It's like that feeling of satisfaction when you hit send on an email and you see that little confirmation message pop up.
Right.
You're like, okay, closure, reassurance.
Exactly.
So it's not just about acknowledging the action,
Yeah.
right? It's about combating that feeling of helplessness, like you were saying, that people get when they think that their actions just don't matter.
Exactly.
That their voice doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all ties back to that big question, like if we really want to save democracy, we got to make people feel like they can actually make a difference.
Absolutely.
Their actions matter,
Yeah.
Which brings us to another principle the article highlights, mobile compatibility.
Right.
I mean, we're all so busy these days.
Yeah.
And let's be real, so much of our interaction with the world happens on our phones.
Yeah, it seems so obvious, but you'd be surprised how many platforms, they're still just so clunky,
Yeah.
Possible to navigate on a phone.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, trying to register to vote, right?
Yeah.
Or sign a petition, and you're on your phone. And the website is just a total mess. You're way more likely to just give up.
Totally. It's like, come on, democracy, get with the times.
Yeah, exactly.
But seriously, if we want people to engage, we have to make it easy and convenient, no matter what device they're using.
For sure.
And speaking of convenience, the article also talks about personalization, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is so relevant, with the information overload we all face these days, especially when it comes to political news.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of irrelevant information. It's
Right.
like, how am I supposed to make sense of all this?
Exactly. And that's where personalization can be really powerful,
Yeah.
The research talks about tailoring content to the user's interests. So instead of being bombarded with news from, every corner of the political world,
Right.
you might see information that's more relevant to you, like local elections, candidates in your district, issues that directly affect your community.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about making, civic engagement feel relevant,
Yeah,
manageable, not like completely overwhelming.
exactly.
But personalization, I mean, it sounds great in theory, but isn't there a risk, of creating echo chambers? Like, if we only see information that agrees with our existing views, won't that make political discourse even more fragmented?
That's a valid concern, and it's definitely something UX designers need to keep in mind, right?
Yeah.
The goal of personalization, it's not to create filter bubbles,
Right.
but to make the information more relevant and engaging. It's about helping people connect with the issues that matter most to them.
Yeah.
And that could actually lead to, more informed and productive conversations, even across ideological divides.
So it's about striking that balance,
Yeah,
between personalization and still being exposed to different viewpoints.
exactly.
Which brings us back to the big question, are there any real-world examples of platforms that are actually doing this well? Has anyone cracked the code on using UX to boost civic engagement?
Well, there are definitely some encouraging examples out there.
Okay.
The article mentions one platform. It was designed specifically for local elections.
Okay.
And they used personalization to, tailor information to each user's precinct,
Wow.
highlighting candidates on their ballot, even providing directions to their polling place.
That's amazing.
They also incorporated things like, real-time results updates
Cool.
and interactive maps that showed voter turnout by neighborhood.
That's so cool, especially for local elections. I feel like those are the ones where turnout tends to be lower, right?
Yeah.
That kind of targeted information, That could be really impactful.
Absolutely.
But let's be real, there's got to be challenges too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Political systems, they're notoriously complex, slow to change.
Absolutely. And implementing these UX principles in this space, it's not easy.
Yeah.
One of the biggest hurdles, I think, is getting buy-in from the people in power,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's often a lot of resistance to change, especially when it comes to technology.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine a lot of, but we've always done it this way.
Exactly.
And then there's the issue of funding.
Yeah.
You know, developing and implementing these well-designed platforms, that requires resources. And those can be scarce. Especially at the local level, it always comes down to priorities, doesn't it?
It really does.
Hmm.
But I think the potential benefits of using UX to improve civic engagement, they're so significant that it's worth investing in.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Increased voter turnout,
Yep.
more informed decision-making, a stronger sense of civic pride. Those are outcomes that could have like a ripple effect, throughout society.
And it's fascinating, right, that we're even talking about civic pride in the context of, like, website design.
Yeah,
It really shows you how powerful these tools can be when they're used thoughtfully.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
about creating those experiences that make people feel valued, heard, empowered. And that's something good UX design can do. But there's another challenge that the article points out.
Okay.
Making sure that the language and concepts used in these political platforms are accessible to people from all different backgrounds,
Yeah.
different levels of education. We can't assume everyone has the same level of, political literacy.
That's a really important point. If we want to make democracy truly accessible, we've got to make sure the language we're using is inclusive and easy to understand.
Exactly. UX designers have a responsibility, right, to be thoughtful about the language they use, the visuals they incorporate,
Yeah.
the overall flow of information. It's about making complex ideas clear and digestible without, dumbing things down, meeting people where they are, and guiding them through the process in a way that feels empowering.
You know, this conversation has really shifted my perspective on the role of design in our democracy. Like, it's not just about aesthetics. It's about creating systems that work for everyone.
And that's what's so exciting about this field, right?
Yeah.
It's about using design to solve real-world problems, to create a more just and equitable society.
So where do we go from here? How do we actually start implementing these UX principles in a meaningful way? Is it about, like, putting pressure on elected officials to prioritize this, or is it more about supporting organizations that are already doing this work?
I think it's a combination of both, honestly.
Yeah.
We need to hold our leaders accountable, right, and demand they invest in modernizing our civic infrastructure.
Right.
But we can also support the organizations that are already, leading the charge in this area.
Mm-hmm.
There's some amazing nonprofits and advocacy groups out there that are developing these, innovative tools and platforms
Right.
to make civic engagement more accessible and more engaging.
So it's kind of a bottom-up and a top-down approach. We need to create the demand for better design, but also support the people who are already working to make it happen.
Exactly. And I think one of the most powerful things we can do as individuals is to just be more aware of these issues.
Right. Mm.
Pay attention to the design of the websites and platforms you use, to interact with your government.
Yeah.
Are they user-friendly,
Right.
accessible? Do they make you feel empowered, or do they make you feel frustrated?
That's such a good point. It's about becoming more conscious consumers of civic technology.
Yeah,
And if something's not working, we need to speak up.
absolutely.
We got to demand better. After all, this is our democracy.
Yeah.
We deserve systems that are designed to serve us, not the other way around.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny, as we've been talking about all these different aspects of UX design, right, in this
Yeah.
political realm, it struck me that we're almost redefining what it means to be politically active.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, traditionally, we think of political participation as things like voting,
Yeah.
attending rallies, or contacting our elected officials.
Right, the classic stuff.
Right. And those are all still incredibly important, of course.
Absolutely.
But what if we expanded that definition?
Okay.
What if it included, engaging with online platforms that promote civic discourse,
Yeah.
or fact-checking information, or even just having, those informed conversations with friends and family about issues that matter to us?
I love that. It's like we're democratizing democracy itself
Exactly.
by making it more accessible in all these different ways.
And that's where UX design can play such a powerful role,
Yeah.
by creating these platforms that are intuitive, engaging, inclusive.
Yeah.
We can empower people to participate in ways that actually fit their lives,
Mm.
you know?
It's not just about getting people to vote.
No.
It's about fostering this whole culture of civic engagement that goes way beyond just, checking a box every few years.
Right. It's about creating a society where people feel like they have a voice,
Yeah.
that their opinions actually matter,
Yeah.
that they can make a difference.
Yeah, it's about giving people that sense of ownership. Like their actions, their voice, it actually matters.
Yeah.
Reading this article, having this conversation, it's honestly made me feel, I don't know, more optimistic about the future of democracy.
Yeah.
It's easy to get discouraged by all the challenges, but seeing how people are actually using technology to innovate and create change, it's pretty inspiring.
I agree. It's like, okay, the system, it's not perfect, right?
Right.
But there are people out there who are, working hard to make it better. And that gives me hope. And that actually brings me to a final kind of thought-provoking question based on everything we've talked about today.
Okay, hit me with it.
So we've established that, good UX design can make these complex political processes,
Yeah.
more accessible, more engaging.
Right.
But what other areas of civic life could benefit from this approach?
Hmm.
Could we use these same principles to improve things like, I don't know, access to healthcare,
Oh, wow.
education, or even just navigating our local communities?
That's a fantastic question. It really, expands the possibilities, doesn't it? Suddenly, we're not just talking about voting, we're talking about how people interact with all these essential services, these systems that shape their lives.
Exactly. Imagine like a healthcare website that's actually designed to help people,
Yeah. Yeah.
easily find the information they need, schedule appointments, understand their treatment options.
Right.
Or what about an education platform that personalizes the learning experience for each student,
Yeah.
making it easier for them to stay engaged and motivated.
Yeah.
The possibilities are really kind of endless.
It's almost like we're talking about a paradigm shift,
Yeah.
where good design, it's not just an afterthought. It's like a fundamental part of how we build a more just and equitable society.
And that's something for all of us to think about, as we move forward.
Yeah.
How can we advocate for better design?
Right.
Not just in politics, but in every area that affects our well-being,
Yeah.
our ability to thrive.
Yeah, it starts with that awareness, right? And with demanding better from the systems and platforms that we use every single day.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive. I've learned so much. Thank you.
Yeah, this was great.
And listeners, if you're as intrigued by this intersection of, UX and civic engagement as we are, be sure to check out the show notes.
Yeah.
We've got some links to some amazing resources where you can, explore this topic even further. Until next time, keep those minds curious. And remember, your voice matters.